Well, hello everyone. Another month, another media digest. Can you believe it? We're in July already, past halfway in the year, or something like that. Um, and you're probably looking at the runtime of this digest, and you're thinking, "Wow, Ari, this one's so short." And that's because I've hardly consumed anything this month, or last month, I guess technically, because I'm recording this on August 1st when I'm in America. Um, so yeah, I guess I'll just. Oh wait, actually, I've decided at the beginning of these, I should probably shout out that my media list for whenever I consume things is on Twitter. So go to twitter.com/eliteari2, and then you can see whenever I watch something, I add it to the list, and you can be like, wow, Ari actually watched it, and this is the date he watched it, and I don't have to like trust the dates he puts in these slides. So there you go. Um, but that's it. And also, I have not forgotten. I've gotten a bunch of requests over these past 2 months that I haven't consumed much, but don't worry, I'll get to them eventually, unless I've like struck it off as something I'm not going to watch, such as Atlanta, for example. Um, but I'll get there. Anyway, to begin, I had a few rewatches this month. The first one, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So if you somehow haven't heard of this is a movie. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and I watched it on the 7th of July. Um, so I guess this is to preface. I watched this because I started watching Secret Invasion, and I was like, oh, I really like Nick Fury. What was the movie that made me like Nick Fury? And it was this movie. So I was like, yeah, you know what? Let me go back and watch it. But overall, this is a 5 out of 5. This is probably the top 3 or 4 MCU movies overall. I imagine if I was to think right now, it'll probably be like Endgame, Infinity War, um, Eternals would be up there. This would be up there. Um, yeah, it's probably it. Something like that. But this is great. The rewatch was great. I enjoyed this. It's enthralling from beginning to end. It's a big change up for Captain America, who was very boring in his first 2 movies. And when I say first two, I mean like his first one and then the Avengers movie. The second Avengers movie he was okay in, I guess. But did that come after this or before this? Oh, I gotta Google it. Wait. 15. Okay, so he came out after this, so no wonder he's good in that one too. But yeah, this is the movie that makes Captain America. It's a spy movie. It talks about AI. Nick Fury's in it and is really cool. I don't know what else you want from me. That's basically everything I like in a movie, and it was great. So now look at my notes. So I have not prepared for this whatsoever. So these are notes that I'm reading that I made quite a long time ago. So it's funny how Captain America. Oh yeah. So basically, my first note is just ranting about how this is the movie that makes Captain America the interesting character that he becomes eventually. Because he does truly become an impactful character. Like when he is standing alone at the end of Endgame, all by himself, standing against Thanos' army, you're like, wow, this is Captain America. He came from all the way from his first movie where he's like a good guy with a good heart who wants to try his hardest and do the best for his country, and here he is now, being a great man. And without this movie, the Winter Soldier, I have no reason to care for him. I found him very uninteresting. His action was very boring. He seemed out of place in the Avengers. He seemed like a very stereotypical, like, oh, he's the good heart of the team, whereas everyone else actually does enacts his will, I guess. But here he kind of proves himself as a valuable thing. And this movie shows that. But what does my note say? It's funny how Captain America's entire character, and perhaps what makes Infinity War and Endgame so great. Yeah, I guess, yeah, he is an integral part of making those movies so great. Him on one end and Tony on the other end. Those two interacting are always so good. And we'll never get stuff like that again, I guess, now that they're both gone out of the picture. But anyway. Yeah, perhaps what makes Infinity War and Endgame so great is entirely dependent on this movie. Without this movie, we would see Captain America as undeserving of the praise he gets. He would be the goody two shoes moral support of the team rather than the capable fighter who can go against even Iron Man. The fact that he throws a knife into a guy's hand during the covert ship mission at the beginning already paints him in such a different light. Yeah, he is painted as kind of ruthless here as well. Like he will break people's arms and stuff and do what needs to be done for the greater good, I guess. Yeah, we see his strength in this movie, whereas he comes across as very weak in the Avengers movie. Yeah, anyway, that's basically what I said. I only have like 10 more points here, right? This will be really quick. The Triskelion is a thing that's introduced. I believe it's introduced in this movie, and that's really cool. Like it's what's cool about it. Firstly, it's just a building. But it's not the building that's important. It's like the people in there. And what makes it so cool is that it's a capable intelligence organization, I guess. It's kind of like what people not wish, but like fantasize about, like the real life equivalent of these things, like what do they say, the NSA and the CIA or whatever. Shield is producing technology that is unparalleled, and it's creating, it's thinking like a million steps ahead about having this Project Insight that's going to be in the sky monitoring for threats and stuff, and it's building these secret technologies of these giant helicarriers, and it recruits the top of the highest intellects in the world, and it has technology in every facet of every aspect of this building, where you step in and everything's using facial recognition, and there's levels of security, and it's like it's capable, it's futuristic, it's cool, it's interesting, and I like it a lot. It's a very cool science fiction, I guess, and it's also integrated in the middle of a city, so it's like in plain sight. Really cool. Anyway, that's just my rant about the Triskelion. Shield at its peak, having a capable intelligence organization is so cool. I don't think this is another thing. I don't think the MCU has been the same since Shield fell. To me, Shield was one of the appeals. Maybe it is why I like Agents of Shield so much. Like a capable spy agency is just such a cool concept, I guess, in storytelling. And it just doesn't feel the same ever since they fell in this movie, but it was a worthy sacrifice for the sake of making such a good movie. But anyway, level system is cool. Fury is level 10. Captain America is only 8. It's, subtle storytelling, Man, the scale of Project Insight and seeing those giant carriers is so cool. Yeah, the reveal when you're going down the elevator and you just, like, the giant Project Insight helicarriers, like, popping up. It's like, wow, S.H.I.E.L.D. is terrifying. Very cool. I've already mentioned this as well. The pervasive use of technology everywhere in the Triskelion is cool. This is such a cool visual of a potential future society. You've got the World Council security holograms, the rooms where AI is always listening and is ready to fulfill your requests and stuff along those lines. It's all really cool. So obviously a big crux of maybe this movie was ahead of its time. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. Like maybe I was just too young to understand that people were already concerned about these things, about like spying in terms of technology and AI and all that. But this movie does a good job of showing how cool those things can be, but I guess also how deadly. And that's like the whole crux of this movie, about how oversight can be useful, but at the same time it can be used for great harm. And you've got 3 characters. You've got Alexander Pierce. You've got he's on one end. You've got Nick Fury on the other end, and you've got Captain America. I guess you got Alexander Pierce on one end, who's like the we can use this to do to enact my will. Then you've got Captain America on the other end, who's like, we cannot use this. This is terrible. And then like it restricts our freedoms or whatever. And then you got Fury in the middle, who's like, we could kind of use this. I get it's kind of bad, but like we could probably do something with this. And it's interesting that in the end, Captain America kind of wins. It is an interesting, I guess it's a very similar critique to what I have in Civil War, where it's like, I don't think he's ever truly right in his extreme views, but somehow the movie always portrays him as being right. So I don't know, but it's not really, that's more of a thing when I talk about Civil War later on. The pervasive, I talked about that. It's also really cool when Alexander Pierce is first introduced in this, because when you see the Avengers, obviously Fury kind of seems like the head of everything. Like he's in charge of everything, he's always one step ahead, he's the highest in S.H.I.E.L.D., everything, blah, blah, blah. Then you get like a little bit of this World Security Council, but they don't get portrayed as competent, because Fury undermines them in the end, and he ends up forming the Avengers and all that, and stops the nuke and all that. But in this movie, you meet Alexander Pierce, who seems like a capable person who Fury respects and seems to be above Fury. And he comes across as like a capable politician, which is something you haven't seen so far, at least not that I remember, in the MCU. So it was really interesting to see that. The Nick Fury, the chase scene with him in the car and Hydra coming after him, it's cool. I've watched that a million times on YouTube, but it was cool to see the full thing once again. The build up to the elevator scene is awesome, where you got like Captain America's like going down, and you got like people just coming in floor by floor, and he's like looking at him, he's like, oh, what's going on here? I love that scene. But I mean, if you've seen this movie, I mean, there's nothing original I'm going to say here. It's more of the same greatness. Movie about the dangers of AI, and AI to predict people who will oppose a regime. Interesting concept. The hand-to-hand Captain America versus Winter Soldier fight under the bridge is amazing. Absolutely. It probably is. Yeah, this is, I guess, my stance on this, that I think it's probably foolish to dismantle S.H.I.E.L.D. entirely like they did. Like, they probably should have salvaged what they could from the helicarriers, like Nick is saying, because I guess the very simple, in my opinion, takeaway at the end of this movie is like what Captain America is kind of preaching, which is that you shouldn't be doing anything to restrict people's freedoms, which makes sense. Like I agree with that. Obviously, freedom important. Obviously, it's going to be bad freedoms, but or like not bad freedoms. There's going to be people doing bad things with their freedom, but freedom should be something fundamental or whatever. That's like Captain America's stance, I think. And what was I going to say? And I believe he would be against Shield rising up again because large entities like that with unchecked power can do great harm, like they did with Hydra. For instance, the idea is that, Nick, you can go and rebuild S.H.I.E.L.D., but how do you know that once more you will not just be tricked and Hydra will take over again? Or something worse than Hydra, or something like Hydra, I guess. That's what Captain America's argument would be, and eventually Nick falls to that. But I think that you just need to keep that in mind and keep trying to be better. Like, the next organization you build, you need to learn from the mistakes of Hydra, build systems where even if every single actor in the company is a bad actor, then there should be some safeguard that will prevent that from undermining the like some greater goal, like some like freedom of people. There should be something. Basically, I don't know what I'm trying to get across here, but it feels like Captain America's solution at the end is very simplistic, and I feel like there is a way to build Shield back up without having it be a corrupt agency. So I don't know. It's a very hopeless message, I guess, at the end here, where it's like institutions have to be corrupt. It will always lead to corruption. There's no way to fix it. Whereas I feel like there probably is some way, and it kind of seems a bit simplistic and strange that Fury went along with it, I guess. I don't know. My one criticism with this film. And then I got two more things. One, apparently I said the music theme is cool. I don't remember at all what I'm referring to here. And I have no idea. Nothing's coming to mind about like what it sounds like. But the best scene in this movie is the background image here. You got to keep both eyes open, and it's like the coolest thing. He takes it off, and it's like, oh my god, you can ID me with my bad eye, and I'm like, oh, it's so cool. So what a movie. I didn't have much to say, but then we have the next movie, which I also rewatched, Captain America: Civil War. This is the next Captain America movie. 2 hours 26 minutes, and I watched it on the 12th of July. So this is 4 out of 5. So this isn't quite as good as the last one, because I think my biggest issue here is the crux of this movie is a civil war, where you've got Iron Man basically on one side, and you got Captain America on the other side. One of them stands for the freedom of it's kind of like freedom versus control in a way, where you've got Captain America fighting for no oversight for the Avengers. They can do like they don't want to be he doesn't want to be stopped from doing something good by some bureaucratic institution. Whereas on the other hand, you've got Iron Man talking about how the Avengers need to be held accountable, and they need to have some control. They can't just go around and do what they please. So that's the crux of the Civil War here, which eventually breaks down more into fundamental things about Tony's family and friendship and all that. But I think there isn't enough discussion about the freedom versus control thing I was talking about. Like, I feel like a lot of this movie could have been not resolved, but even handled better and more interestingly if Captain America and Iron Man talked more. I just don't think they talk enough in this movie. And it just comes across as though the movie is just saying that Captain America is right because he's right. And it's like they don't really go too much into it. I don't know. Anyway, so random notes. Okay, I got a bunch of them here. The MIT speech is cool because MIT is in the universe. I don't know why that's so cool. I don't go to MIT. I'm never going to MIT, but for some reason I find it cool that MIT is in there and Iron Man's talking there, and it's like he's giving them grants for like he's funding all their projects or whatever. I'm like, man, that's so cool. I like it. My next note, I don't know how I'm going to talk about all this. So I said it's kind of silly to blame the Avengers for Sokovia. Now, obviously, that's the case. The Avengers, they went there and they tried to help. If they weren't there, the whole world would have died, and Sokovia would have died as well. So worst case, they show up and they fail, and the world dies. It's not their fault. Best case, they show up, they save the world, and they save Sokovia. But they didn't manage to save Sokovia, so they kind of landed there in the middle. I don't blame them for it. The one aspect you could blame them for is blaming Tony, although not necessarily. You could kind of blame Tony for creating Ultron, who then led to the destruction of Sokovia, but you wouldn't be blaming him for intentionally doing it. You would be blaming him for accidentally doing it because the Mind Stone took over Jarvis, and Tony had no control over that and had no reason to suspect that would be the case. So it's kind of like you're blaming someone for an accident that they might have caused. So I don't know. It seems a bit weird to blame them for Sokovia at all. But I kind of get it's like a political thing, but at the same time, the movie is trying to get us to side with, not side with, but try and understand the perspective of the government in wanting to regulate the Avengers, and that kind of seems like a very silly example of a reason why to regulate the Avengers. I don't know. Anyway, how is Captain America possibly going to justify no government oversight? Is he okay with any enhanced individual just doing as they please? That is a very naive issue with Captain America here, which is that, and I don't think they ever address this. The issue is that Captain America proposes that the Avengers stay as they are, which is not under any government particularly, and they basically act as vigilantes where when they think something unjust is being done, they will go and correct that injustice. And obviously, if they are able to do it, then that means that anyone should be able to do it. And it opens up the world to vigilante justice, which kind of seems insane. And Captain America is never forced to face something no one ever raises this to him as a concern, I guess. But it's like the obvious concern that you should be thinking of, and I don't know what he would say to it, which is just what I'm left wondering by the end of this movie. But anyway, Black Panther is awesome. His entrance is so cool in this. Like when it's so cool when he jumps down on the like in front of Bucky and he like takes the shot from the helicopter. God, it's so cool. And that chase scene is also cool when they're like chasing each other. Man, what a movie. Then I have my point here about like the talking. So I said, I get it, the movie needs to happen, but the situation would be far better handled with more discussion and negotiation between the Avengers and the United Nations. So my first point I said is, yeah, right now it feels silly to blame the Avengers for Sokovia. I think that's pretty obvious. And I said, right now it also feels silly to reject oversight because then society falls apart, which is what I said before about the vigilante justice. So it just feels like things fall apart in this movie too quickly without having those interesting discussions about like freedom versus control, oversight versus vigilantism or whatever. I just wish more time was spent on that. And maybe they think when they're making this movie that, the audiences, they won't like the discussions, they prefer the action or something. But I don't know. I feel like you could make some really interesting discussions like that. But who knows? Very miscellaneous note, but Vision's dialogue is always great in these movies, or at least this one and the Ultron movie. In this one, he says like our existence invites challenge. Just like the way he phrases things is always so cool. Like, the one I think of is obviously in the I don't know how obvious it is, I guess, but the best scene in Age of Ultron where Ultron is like they're doomed or whatever, and is like true, but something isn't beautiful because it lasts. And I think you missed that or something. And I'm like, man, that's so cool. Like in an otherwise very not very interesting dialogue movie, Vision's dialogue is always interesting. And also I have another note here about it, which is that when he's talking about how he doesn't understand what the Mind Stone is, and he wants to understand it because that would let him control it rather than it controlling him. Vision is always like the best part of these movies. It's such a shame that in Infinity War, I guess it didn't really get to do much. Yeah, anyway. Captain America says the Sokovia Accords just shift the blame for catastrophes to the government. What do I think about that? I mean, I guess that's true, but I suppose that is ideally what you would want, right? Like, I don't know, like someone needs to be held accountable. Either it's the Avengers themselves or it's the people that control them. And I don't really have a point on that. I don't know why I wrote that down. Then I have my hate for Hawkeye in this movie. Like, he shows up randomly, goes to take Wanda out of her house to recruit her to Captain America's side, and to me it's just like he comes across as so disgustingly like manipulative, and he's like forcing her to leave, even like he's treating her like a child basically, in the same way that Tony kind of treats her as a child by locking her in a room, you know. He's doing the complete opposite, and I would say probably worse, because he's explicitly doing it, whereas Tony's doing it a bit more implicitly and like with some more grace. He comes in and steals her, and he's like acting as though it's obvious. It's like, come on, obviously we need to go, we need to leave, and like, I know better than you. Like, I'm older than you, I'm wiser and more experienced. You need to come with me. Isn't it obvious we're gonna leave? And he kind of reminds me of like parents when they're like when it seems like either they know better than you, or another thing I was also thinking of is when they remember that you liked something when you were a kid. So to them, it's obvious that you still like it now, even if you might not. It's like, oh, you know, you like that as a kid, obviously, or you like doing this as a kid. obviously you should be doing it now. And I guess the kind of thing I'm trying to draw here is that like when he comes in, he's like dragging her away because to him it's like so obvious in his mind that Wanda is going to be on Captain America's side because just obvious, you know, like they're the ones who saved her, blah blah blah, whatever. Freedom, obvious. But it just comes across as so like manipulative, and I hate it so much. Anyway, I don't know if that made any sense, but it just pisses me off. Yeah, Vision gets nerfed obviously in this movie, and Wanda controlling his mind, like using her powers to like force his body into like weird like contortions and take over the mind stone that she knows that he is kind of like worried about and anxious about. It comes across as a special type of like bad, like a disgusting kind of bad, where it's like I don't know. I can't draw a direct parallel, but for some reason it feels like she's abusing his trauma in a way. Even though it's not, the Mind Stone isn't directly trauma, but like taking control of someone's body using something that you know that they already don't like that exists, which is the Mind Stone division. He wants to understand it better and not have it control him. To then use it to control him kind of feels like gross and like a special type of gross rather than just like restraining him somehow. I don't know. Anyway, everything Black Panther does in this movie is so cool. God, Hawkeye is so annoying, so self-righteous. I guess that's a way to describe it, self-righteous. Like he obviously everything he thinks is right, you know, I'm obviously correct. I don't need to explain myself or whatever. The raft is so cool. That is true. It's in the middle of the ocean. Looks cool. Yeah, anyway. Problem, not a problem, but the MCU needs another Tony Stark. All these Avengers movies are made by him. I would say, like, if I could remove all the characters and leave one of them behind, it would probably be him, because he is cool. Like, that's really what it comes down to. It's always fun to listen to him talk. He has a very strong, defined personality, and he always is funny, and he has interesting things to say. And it's interesting to see how he reacts to situations. Maybe I'm just describing it as like he's a character that I like a lot. But I think it really just comes down to how cool he is. And the MCU doesn't have a character like that at the moment. The closest one is Doctor Strange, but even he isn't quite there. So I hope they can introduce some character like that. Zemo has his speech to Black Panther at the end. That was really cool as well. But, you know, what am I going to say about it? Oh, then I have my nice summary here. So parts of this movie are enthralling, parts are questionable. Everything after the mission report reveal is a 10. So yeah, everything after like Iron Man finds out that Bucky killed his mum basically is perfect. Before that, the conflicting motivations are a bit messy, and clearly Iron Man is in the right. There needed to be more discussion between the two sides before the conflict started. Absolutely. So that was a mess of a discussion here about Civil War, but there you go. And those are my two rewatches, the two Captain America movies. I also haven't seen the first one I watched it once in high school on a DVD, and I never watched it again. I remember not liking it, but every time I see a clip of it on like TikTok or YouTube or whatever, I'm like, man, that actually looks really cool. Maybe I should rewatch it. But I didn't, because from what I remember, it was really boring. So next up, Left 4 Dead 2. So this is a game, it took us 17 hours to finish it. We started on the 26th of April and finished on the 18th of July. So quite a long time. So I guess I should say I played this with two friends and then a robot or AI or whatever that would also play. And this is an old game, but I enjoyed this. This was a 3 out of 5. Just if I'm rating the game itself. The experience is a 5. I love playing games with my friends. But the game itself is a 3 out of 5, which is surprisingly good. Because, firstly, I'm not, like, on face value, I had no interest in this game, really. Like, it's just I just knew it was like a shooting game, there's zombies or whatever, and I'm like, I don't know, there's nothing that really appeals me to this. I'm not particularly interested in first-person shooters. I'm not particularly interested in zombie or horror games. But it was just a nice, pleasant game, like simple mechanics. You go around, you pick up guns. I always picked up a shotgun. I love the shotgun. I liked meleeing things as well. Like I picked up an axe every now and then. And you shoot things. And the zombies are funny and they're cool, and there's a lot of them, and it's kind of a cool atmosphere. The game looks surprisingly good for the when it came out, which I believe was like 2009 or something, quite a while ago. I think the only this game could be improved so much by just when you shoot. Maybe this is also a lag thing because I'm in America and the two people I'm playing with are in Australia. I don't know, but when you shoot a zombie, there's no or maybe it was a censorship thing now that I think about it, but there's no like animation. When you shoot it, it just fades out, like the opacity goes down basically and it turns invisible. which makes it difficult to tell if you actually killed it for a second until it like starts fading out, I guess. It would be good to add animations, I guess, to the zombies, so it's like more obvious when you shoot them, or like blood spatters or something. There's no blood spatters, so it's hard to tell if you actually shot something. But yeah, let me think. What else is there? I guess the levels them. I don't have also I don't have any notes for this. I'm just going off the top of my head here, so you can see the distinction between when I have notes and when I don't. The the levels themselves were interesting. Like I thought they were unique enough between different stages. There were like cool like choke points where you'd have to wait here for a bit and kind of wipe out zombies. That was fun. The different zombie types were pretty cool. It was always funny to see a single, I don't know what they call it, the charger or like the really scary big one come in and like wipe out the whole squad, and then we're dead and we have to start again, all because there's one zombie that randomly came. That's always funny. I don't know, it's just a fun time to play multiplayer games, you know, and this was a nice, simple, I think the simplicity is important, shooting game with a nice atmosphere that I enjoyed playing. I guess I would say that is my overall thoughts. I guess it ended weirdly, but I think that's because we played like some extension or something. It was like the ending didn't feel like an ending. I don't know, but it was very fun. So next up, shit, let me drink some water. My goodness. So next up, we have Look Back. So this is a manga. It was 142 pages, I believe, approximately. And I read this on the 25th of July. And this was recommended by the great Miller the Killer, who was a great man, because this is a 5 out of 5. But I suppose I should have, I guess this is kind of what I assumed I would probably give it anyway before I even read it, because I love Fujimoto so much. If you don't know, this is the man who wrote Chainsaw Man, and who's writing Chainsaw Man Part 2 right now, which is just the greatest week-to-week manga that I love reading so much. And he also wrote the manga, or made the manga, I guess, whatever you drew and directed and wrote or whatever. The greatest manga that I have read this year, or greatest anything that I've consumed this year, Goodbye Eri. And now he has made Look Back. And I guess I should start off with a comparison so I don't have to keep comparing them throughout this thing. It's not quite as good as Goodbye Eri. There are some things I don't like about this, but it is fantastic, is what I would say. Fujimoto always hits. Like, I have yet to see something of his that I do not enjoy. Maybe it exists, but I haven't seen it yet. And God, do I love his art style. Look at this background. What a cool image. Skipping in the rain, my God. All right, so Look Back. We have two characters, Fujino, who is a girl who draws manga and is also good at sport, who's like a subtle detail we got at the beginning, and Kyomoto, a person who stays at home, who for like, I don't know, like 50% of this thing, or maybe 30% or something, I thought was a guy, basically. So a lot of these notes say like he or him or whatever instead of her, so there we go, we'll get through that, and I'll probably confuse it a few times. So yeah, those two characters, and interestingly, I didn't pick this up until right at the end, but you know, Fujino and Kyomoto spells Fujimoto. You know, if you take out the Fuji no and the Kyomoto, you're crazy. How cool is that? Anyway, let's see. I'm just gonna go through my notes because I don't remember too much the step-by-step details. So, man, now I feel bad for. Okay, let me think about this. This is a story of a girl who is writing manga. She's kind of arrogant. Well, not even arrogant. She kind of has like a bit of an ego because people praised her when she was younger. And she runs into this other girl who is significantly better at her art, I guess. And people like her manga better. And she kind of feels upset about it or whatever. That's like the premise of this beginning bit. So, yeah, my take on Fujino initially is that I felt really bad for her because clearly she thinks she's good. And it's a very simple thing. She thinks she's really good, and then she's now being compared to this other person whose art is like more detailed or whatever, and clearly that's what the people in her class value more. And it just makes me feel really bad for her, you know. But yeah, let me see. What did I say? I said I hate this new artist guy, which is the girl I'm talking about, Kyomoto. I don't like him already. Good art doesn't make a good manga. A good story and directing does. Like I don't remember what it was, but I like. Basically, for their class or something, they would submit something for the school letter, and you had hers, which was like a really cool, funny story, and then you had Kyomoto's, who's like had really cool art for like backgrounds or something, but it wasn't a very interesting story, and I was like, oh, obviously hers is better, you know, than Kyomoto's, but everyone liked Kyomoto's, and I'm like, oh god, I hate it. Anyway, and I also felt bad for her because everyone liked it, whereas if I was there, I would tell her that hers is better because it was better. Anyway, but it's also interesting that I only feel so pissed off because earlier she said she only spent 5 minutes on last week's one because that implies that she's insecure about her skills. I feel bad for her. Yeah, because her initial reaction when she's showing when her classmates praise her for her work, like about her manga, they're like, wow, that's really, yeah, look at you, you could be like an artist or something. And she's like, oh, yeah, thank you, I only spent 5 minutes on this. And obviously she didn't just spend 5 minutes on this, or if she did it because she wanted to have some plausible deniability if it did come across as bad. So obviously she's insecure, and that makes me immediately feel bad for her when she's compared to someone who everyone values more. I'm like, oh, she already feels bad, now you're making her feel worse. Anyway, and I was just thinking about how I'm fantasizing about how if I was in this scenario and I was Fujino here feeling like I'm inferior or something, I would make a joke out of it. I'd be like, I don't know what I would do, but you have to kind of admit that the other person is better, and be like, oh, I'm just gonna get better or something, or like make it into a challenge or something. You can't just like be ashamed of it. I don't know. There's something I don't know. God, I don't know, making any sense here. And then I said Fujimoto is the absolute greatest because I'm already invested. Like a few pages into this, I'm already like emotionally hooked and invested in Fujino's success because she is the greatest and her art was amazing. And this other fraud Kyomoto that I don't like is getting all the praise that is undeserved. So I'm already invested. I love the simplicity of like when she got home and she's dedicated to getting better at like making manga. She Googles how to get better at art. And I'm like, wow, that's simple. It's great. It's very relatable. It's awesome. It's just a very Fujimoto thing, I guess. Then I said, I wonder what the reveal will be. Because obviously the kid, Kyomoto, she's at home for some reason and we don't know why. And I'm like, oh, is it going to be because she's bullied or like what's happening? And I guess there wasn't really a reveal. I guess she was just scared of going to school for whatever reason. I don't know. Kyomoto is her fan. How cute. I'm so happy for her. I think my investment is so high because I absolutely love when people are passionate about hobbies and stuff. I would absolutely love if a friend made weekly comics or something like that, even if they were absolutely shit, basically. Yeah, like what I love about this early kind of stuff in this manga is that Fujino is so passionate, and seeing her passion kind of laid bare, and then her giving up, but then someone finally appreciating it, which is the person that she hated. I don't know, it's really compelling stuff. Her skipping in the rain is awesome, already said that. You get the cool reveal that he... Oh my god, okay, it's gonna be confusing for anyone listening. Whenever I say he, I'm referring to the other girl, right? Cool reveal that she starts spending her days at her house. What am I even saying here? Yeah, it was a very cool reveal when this girl goes home, and you get the reveal that Kyomoto has actually been spending time at her house during the day. So instead of being at her old house where she was shut in, she's now moved spending time at Fujino's house and drawing art and stuff, and it's really cool. Or drawing backgrounds, I guess, yeah, which is also really cool. A lot of really cool shots of the back of characters sitting down in this manga, yeah. So a lot of the time, because a lot of the time is spent just panels of people drawing manga, and so it's just like someone holding their pencil, like facing the opposite side of where the viewers are looking, and you see their back and they're just drawing, and there's a lot of really cool shots of that. And there's a lot of like passage of time as well, where it's like Fujino's room, and you got the two of them, Fujino and Kyomoto, and they're like sitting in different positions as the months go on, and the calendar's changing, and you get like these small changes of the room, like the tissue box and the wait, did I write what it was? The tissues and the clock, like on her bed, are like swapping back and forth every month because she like can't decide which one she likes better, or she just wants to change like month to month, you know, as you do when you redecorate your room. Cool small details like that, really cool. Then I said, I wonder why it's called Look Back, and I guess we figure that out by the end of this. So I thought Kyomoto was a boy this whole time, absolutely. Man, it's always so freeing, Freeing, to read Fujimoto's stories, because it really feels like he can do whatever he wants. It felt like that way in Chainsaw Man, it felt that way in Goodbye Eri, and it feels that way in this, where it's like, manga is it comes across as though manga is infinitely creative. You can do whatever you want in this. There's no limits. As long as Fujimoto can draw it, he can make a story out of it. And it's a really unique feeling, I guess, when I've read all of his work so far. And I don't feel this way for other things. Like when I'm reading Attack on Titan, I definitely don't feel that way. Because it feels like there's a very rigid story, and Izuyama is like compelled to stick by things that he's established. Whereas when I'm reading things like this, and even Chainsaw Man, it feels like Fujimoto doesn't need to stick to those things that he's established. He doesn't have to ever address the Gun Devil if he doesn't want to. Like, he could drop it and I'd be happy with it. It feels, I don't know what it is about it, but there's some, maybe it's the tone of how, like the absurd tone to Chainsaw Man, or all of these, I guess, as well, where it's like, you don't have to, he doesn't stick to it. And I would be perfectly fine if, for instance, when she's skipping home, she slips over and dies, and there's like a new story that starts up. Like, I would have no issue with it. It would be perfectly in line with these kind of stories. I don't know. I don't know if anyone can relate to that. That's just what I get from a lot of Fujimoto stuff that I've seen. All right. Wow, they grow up so much. Yeah, this manga covers a lot of time, all the way from like 4th grade or something, to when they're adults, going to university. Cool stuff. Yeah, we get a montage of them writing all these different manga. Really cool. It was really cool when you see Fujino's insecurity is still there. She says, well, whatever, why not? You only draw the backgrounds anyway. I can just have assistants handle that. So when Kyomoto basically tells her that she wants to go and leave and go to university, Fujino won't admit, obviously, that she likes Kyomoto and kind of needs her as well. But it's similar. It's basically her deflection. It's a call. So her saying like, well, whatever, why not? You only draw the backgrounds anyway. I can just have assistants handle that. That's kind of a callback to when in the first like few pages she talks about how, oh, don't worry, I just spent 5 minutes on it. You know, it's kind of like her ego is she's too, she doesn't want to admit something basically. Like she's very defensive, I guess, and the defense kind of shows her insecurity. I think that's really cute. Fujino is my favorite character in this. All right, I guess there's like 2 characters and whatever. This manga would make a great movie with a soundtrack and everything. I stand by that, like a live action movie. And then I'm a kind of not really a genius, depending on your interpretation, but I said, is this whole manga just one of Fujino's one-shots looking back at her life? And it kind of is like that, I guess. We'll get to my criticism of this story. We're getting there. Then Kyomoto dies, or does she? And then I said, man, it's sad. This genre of story is always so sad when a childhood friend dies suddenly. And seeing the hiatus announcement, it was really sad for Fujino's manga. And then also when Fujino is drawing at some point, or maybe it was Kyomoto in the university, I think. And she's painting the Chainsaw Man door from part 1, which was cool. I don't know, nice little like reference to another piece of Fujimoto's work. Interesting. Then so now my not complaint, but I feel like surely this is what people talk about. I haven't looked up what people think, but or maybe I just missed something. But it was very confusing when the kind of ghost storyline happens at the end, where the manga page like slips out through the door or whatever, and then you see an alternate history of like what would have happened basically if she never went into the room or something like that. So what did I think I have a decent grasp of like what happened, but when I first read through like that part, it was just very confusing. I'm like, what's going on? It took me until I finished the whole manga and then went back and read that part that I kind of understood it. But I said, I think it's just seeing an alternate history from the perspective of Kyomoto. But then I have a giant note here. So I said, now that I've finished, it's still confusing. I think Fujino goes to Kyomoto's house after her death, so I'm pretty sure that happens, runs into the first 4-panel manga that she drew for her, that she thinks led to Kyomoto's death, so I think that's true. She then breaks down crying and imagines a life where things could have turned out differently. Then a gust of wind blows a 4-panel manga out from Kyomoto's room, and it was the manga Look Back by Kyomoto, which is a story where Sensei Fujino saves her from some crazy person attacking her. She quickly runs into the room, but there's no one there. It's just a sad coincidence, basically. Like, I think that's what's happening here. It's just a sad coincidence. There's no, like, supernatural thing, and it's not, like, some big, giant meta manga where the whole thing is, like, Fujino's manga or something. I think it's just a sad coincidence. Then she remembers all the good times they had making the manga, and then she sticks up the look back in her window and decides to keep making manga. So I feel like I think that's the only thing that drags this from being the greatest of this year to like or like up there, I guess, with Chainsaw Man. Maybe not Goodbye Ori, that's like it's a league of its own, but it's just a little bit of confusion here where I'm like, I'm not really confident what's going on here, and the conclusion I did come down to, which is just that it's a sad coincidence, feels a bit unsatisfying, I guess. So yeah, and then I said the image of her sitting in Komato's room and just reading the old manga is heartbreaking. That was a candidate for this background thing, but it was a bit square, I think. It's basically she's in the dark. There's like the shelves behind her, and she's like holding the book and she's reading their old manga, and it's very sad. But yeah, that's a look back by Tatsuki Fujimoto, I believe. Fantastic. So then we have got, oh, let me get up, the Secret Invasion. So this is a TV show, 6 episodes long, and it started on the 21st of June, and I finished it on the 26th of July. So this is a Marvel TV series starring Nick Fury as the lead. And let me think, before I go over the notes, overall, I know people hated this. I didn't realize that people hated this until like way afterwards. Like I think a day after I finished the final episode. I thought this was pretty okay. Like this was perfectly fine. A 3 out of 5. I've said this to a few people, but I enjoyed, like I looked forward to this every week. I watched the first episode and I was like, huh, I'm really excited for the next one. And it was basically like that every week. But nothing particularly stood out. Like the week to week experience when I was actually watching the episode, time would pass normally. Like I'd watch it. I'd be like decently engaged. Nothing egregiously bad would happen, but nothing particularly interesting would happen. And I enjoyed it approximately, not nothing too great, but it was fine. And people hated it for some reason, which I'm not sure why, but I guess my commenters will let me know, if you watch Secret Invasion and you hated it, let me know. Anyway, so let me go over my notes. Episode 1 was okay, mildly entertaining. It felt a bit small scale with Nick, Maria, and Krennic. Oh yeah, Krennic is whatever, Talos, I think was his name. Just wandering around the celebration area without disguises at the end like idiots. Yeah, I guess when I went into this, I was expecting a more well-written or sophisticated kind of show. And it was weird to see this obvious dumb idea of these 3 spies going into the open, not wearing disguises, seeming out of place, holding guns, trying to hunt down a Skrull. It seemed like a very bad idea. And I just waved it off as like, oh, it's going to be the one, like there's a bigger plan here, I guess. And maybe like Maria's not actually dead and there's something going on here and that's why they were out in the open. But I guess looking back on it now, it was just kind of bad writing, or in my opinion, bad writing. I said I'm also not a fan of Nick Fury in this episode. Okay, so Nick Fury is a great character, or at least an interesting character to me, because he's always one step ahead and he's always in control, and he's always he's never giving up and stuff like that. The whole premise of this show is that Nick is he's given up, he's not in control, his life has gotten ahead of him, like he's losing control of everything basically, and I don't like it at all. So I find him not very interesting in this. I had no interest in making some compelling character drama about Nick Fury, because I don't really care that much about his character beyond him being just really awesome and cool and always in control. So I don't know, that aspect of this show didn't appeal to me whatsoever. Anyway, let's continue. Young Nick Fury is so cool. Nick Fury is what are these notes? Nick Fury is so cool in general because he always because he always feels on top and in control. I hope the Winter Soldier Mastermind Fury comes back in this show. Well, it certainly doesn't. I guess it kind of does at the end. We'll talk about that. Oh, excuse me. I said I want Nick to be respected. Basically, this premise, the whole thing of this show, which is that Nick is no longer in control, kind of rubbed me the wrong way, I want Nick to be respected. The conversation with Maria's mum, where she says he's Nick Fury, is what I want to see. I'm willing to wait out the show as long as something like that happens by the end, where he has his moment where he's respected. I think you kind of get that at the end, but not really. Does this villain, Gravik, I didn't really know his name by then, does this villain guy not realize he's being the same as the Kree who attacked them? Yeah, the whole premise here of the villains in this series, Gravik and his men, and women, I guess, very silly. Like, they're very one-dimensional. They, if you put any amount of thought, you would see that you are no better than the people who attacked you and led to your demise, or your, situation, and you are truly the bad people here, and they didn't spend any time going into that whatsoever. I really like the scene where Fury calls Rhodey, and you see Rhodey look around, and his security detail is like looking for Nick, and they can't see him, and it's like, hell yeah, that's the Nick I like, always in control, having his spy stuff, awesome. Then I have a note that's probably outdated now that we know that Rhodey is a Skrull, but I said, why does Rhodey hate Nick? Hasn't he always come through for him? He blames it on the Moscow incident and him getting Maria killed. Doesn't he know that he liked Maria and would never have wanted her killed? But I guess that just makes sense because it's not really Rhodey there. And they wanted to like kind of get Nick out of the way, I guess. Oh, I need some water. So the next note I said, I think the Skrull motivations need to be way stronger or like higher. I don't understand why they're trying to kill all humans. Yeah, so I guess the reason is that they want to be proud of their homeland and they want their entire planet or something. But I don't, like they want to be proud of who they are. Like they want to expose their true skin and live as they are. But I just, it feels kind of insane and evil to want to wipe out an entire planet that isn't even your planet. Because you want to have freedom, more freedom, I guess. I don't know. It seems a bit silly. We never really go much into that. How did the... Oh, then I had this big issue. So at the end of, I don't know if it was episode 2 or 3 or whatever, you see a scene where Nick Fury's wife is revealed to be a Skrull, and then Nick comes in, and you get like this weird transition where it's like she's not a Skrull. She looks like... I mean, she's a Skrull, but she's not in a Skrull form anymore. She's in a human form. And to me, obviously, that's meant to be showing that Nick doesn't know that his wife is a Skrull. That's like, it's so obvious to me that that is what the directing is telling you. But that's not what the directing was telling you. Nick does know that his wife is a Skrull, and it's not meant to show that like the Skrull has infiltrated even Nick's family. It's just meant to show that she's a Skrull. Like literally, that's all it's meant to show. I don't know, really dumb directing. I hated that whatever episode ending that was. I thought that was really dumb directing. Anyway. I said episode 2 was good. It's a bit of a weird show, but it's certainly very engaging, and the cast has enough big movie actors that it feels legit. Yeah, I guess that's kind of my takeaway at that point. The conceit of episode 3. So yeah, the idea in episode 3, I think that was the nuclear submarine thing, where it's like, oh, if we don't act, the Skrulls are gonna blow up Russia or something, or the US or something. It's just, there's no stakes here whatsoever because this is a show in the MCU, and obviously they're not going to set off a nuclear apocalypse in the middle of some random MCU show, so there are no stakes whatsoever in this, and I don't feel any tension when I'm watching this nuclear possible war happening, you know? So it turns out Fury does know his wife is a Skrull, then why do that ominous ending last episode? Yep, absolutely, I said that. I guess one of my big problems with the show is that I don't buy that the snap broke Nick as much as so much that he ran away from Earth. Yeah, when I'm reading through these notes, I can see why a lot of people wouldn't like this, but for some reason, the overall, I still feel like I enjoyed this. So I don't know. I said, what a boring cliffhanger. She's working for Gravik, obviously. So I think that's talking about when you get the reveal that Nick's wife is like getting a call from a Skrull to like kill Fury. And I'm like, yeah, obviously that's the case. That's why we had that scene earlier with the phone. So why are you wasting a cliffhanger on this where everyone knows that that's obviously what's happening? The scene where they both shoot... Yeah, so Nick and his wife have this conversation where they both... when Nick's wife is being ordered to kill Nick, and Nick knows that his wife has been ordered to kill him, they both bring guns to the table and they both shoot each other and both chose to shoot the wall and let themselves die rather than the other person. It's a cool scene. Very unique. I've never seen anything like it. I thought it was cool. The battle at the end of episode 4, this was terrible. Where you've got the president coming in on his car and then the Russians come in from helicopters and stuff and they shoot at the president. And it feels really weird and like small scale. And I don't know why, like, Gravik shows up, but I don't know why, like, what he's doing. I got no idea. Like, he reveals his powers to the enemy, and, like, obviously the enemy would then be concerned why there's an alien there, but they'd never bring it up, and he doesn't... it just seems ridiculous. I don't know. What did I say? He kills the one guy with his group powers and then stops for some reason. Yep, weird. I feel bad. There's also this... Rhodey has a security guy who early on Nick breaks his arm, and throughout the entire rest of the show he has a cast on, and I feel so bad for him. I'm like, man, that was just some guy. He's not like a Skrull or anything. Nick just broke his hand accidentally, well, not accidentally, but like needlessly he broke his arm. Poor guy. A few weird low quality bits in this episode. I think episode 4, for instance, Nick saying "you didn't" to Rhodey is like a weird quip line that like seems really out of place. Or Olivia Colman pulling out the gun and shooting the guy who obviously had time to react. Yeah, really weird. There's a lot of small like issues like this. I don't know. It's interesting because there's a lot of small issues in this, okay, that I've pointed out that bother me. But overall, I like this. Whereas Obi-Wan Kenobi also has a lot of small issues like this, but I don't like that. So I don't know what the difference is. I guess I don't know, but there's something that makes it so that I don't like Obi-Wan, but I enjoy this despite the flaws. I don't know. Who is the random guy on the? Oh yeah, so Nick gets on this plane when everyone is out to get him, and some random guy comes in and like has a speech, and the camera focuses on him, and when I'm seeing it for the first time, I'm like, oh my god, this is some cringe fan service. I don't know who this is, and I don't care whatsoever. Why are they in here ruining the flow of the show? And this feels like a moment where if you're in a cinema, everyone will clap and be like, oh my god, it's that guy, it's that guy. And I don't know who it was, but I looked it up afterwards, and it was apparently some guy from Black Widow who like would find planes for her or something. I don't know. Cringe. I hated it. But Olivia Colman is great. That is the head of MI6 or something. I don't really know what she is. I know her from Broadchurch, right? And she was great in this. I guess on Doctor Who, she was Prisoner Zero, good old Prisoner Zero in the best, great episode. The final battle being called, oh yeah, so the battle with Thanos at the end of Endgame, they have a name for that now. It's the Battle of Earth, which kind of like it's interesting. Technically it is the battle. It did take place on Earth. It is like decently cool, but it kind of feels small scale because it wasn't like it was like there were people from all over the universe there. It wasn't for this just the sake of Earth. It was for like all of creation or something. So maybe calling it like the battle for all of creation or something like that. I don't know. It feels very small scale to call it the Battle of Earth, but it was still cool. Collecting the DNA of everyone at the Battle of Earth was a really cool idea. Like that's one of those Nick Fury's always one step ahead, like he's always in control kind of things. I really like that. Yeah, this episode, whichever one it was, I said it felt like an episode of unearned. Yeah, this was the second last episode. Felt like an episode of unearned emotions and moments. So, for instance, the funeral scene where Nick is like giving some speech about his like upbringing and stuff, where I don't care whatsoever. That was the scene at the scene at the grave is what I'm talking about. It wasn't a funeral. I also said the funeral scene, but I don't even remember what the funeral scene was, so I don't know. The scene at the end where he dresses up in his like thing and he puts his eye patch on and then he walks away, and I'm like, I don't care about this. Like, who cares? Why is this such a big moment? Like it's just unearned emotions there. When Fury's wife is mid sentence talking about how, oh yeah, so Gaia shows up at her house and they're talking to each other, Fury's wife and Gaia, and she's mid-sentence, and she's talking about how she would rather face the people in the comfort of her own home. And then out of nowhere, while she's like talking, they shoot the wall, and it's like the most effective jump scare that I've ever witnessed in my life. Because I was not expecting a giant, like, loud shot to be fired there, and I jumped. I was like, oh my god. And I couldn't believe how effective that was. Yeah, so, yeah. The fight scene where the Skrulls... Oh yeah, this is the best fight scene in the show, right? The Skrulls stand up to Gravik, and they fight him. And they like get a plastic bag, and they put it over his head. And then he transforms into a Skrull, and you see his like real Skrull form, and it's kind of like scary and really cool. And it makes Gravik come across as much scarier and more intimidating when you see him. Like he has a Skrull form, and the face we've just been seeing is like some random human face, and that's not really who he is. He's really... a tyrannical leader. Yeah, I thought that was a really cool fight scene. All right, a few more notes. The species it's just some line that I really liked. The species you spent your entire adult life defending, they were condemned to die the day I realized you weren't a man of your word. I thought that was really cool. Then I got tricked here. So I said Fury and Gravik scene alone is great because it reveals what Gravik thinks about Fury. He used to think of Fury as a great man when he was younger. So yeah, I when I watched this, I thought that he really was Fury and Gravik in that scene together. But the reveal is that it's not Fury, it's Gaia. And when I first saw that, like the reveal happened, I was like, oh, that's a bit disappointing, because it's not really Nick there giving his like speech about like about saving the world or whatever. But now that I like. A few minutes later, I was like, hell yeah, I actually like it, because that's bringing back the old Nick Fury that I used to like, that doesn't care about sentimental moments or whatever. And while instead of being there and like kind of giving his emotional plea to Gravik, he was out there like being one step ahead and winning this battle against everyone, I guess, and going and changing the president's mind and all that. So I don't know, I kind of like that. Then I also didn't mention it, but I like the fight with Gaia and Gravik. I thought it was cool, having all these different Avengers powers. I only bring that up because I saw like on Twitter people were not liking that, and I was like, oh, that's a bit sad because I thought it was really cool. Anyway, I wouldn't say it was really cool. I just thought it was like decently cool. Anyway, I don't even know what this means. Oh, okay. Can Gravik not heal Amelia? Oh yeah, so it's strange that not Amelia Clark, Gaia, she's basically a god now. Like she has the powers of like, I don't know, at least 10 Avengers, probably hundreds of Avengers is what I would guess, unless I missed something, including Captain Marvel. So at the minimum, she has Captain Marvel's powers. On top of that, she has a million other powers, including insane healing ability. So she's basically one of, if not the most powerful person that we've ever met in the MCU now, and she's just on Earth doing random things. So I don't know. Gaia and Olivia Colman, they're pairing up. That's a cool pair. I wonder where that's going to go in the future. That'll be interesting. Lamau, the president not being a good guy, is a funny ending. Yeah, it kind of comes out of nowhere, and I kind of like it. It's like this whole time we're placing all of our faith that the president will make the right choice at the end, and he will realize that it wasn't the Russians, and in fact it was the Skrulls who were doing the bad things, and he does realize that at the end, but then he decides he wants to exterminate them. So it's a kind of cool twist on what you were expecting. And it's interesting in that it paints Talos's earlier plan as being naive, because his plan was that we will prove that the Skrulls, we will prove that there's like a bad actor in Gravik who is like trying to undermine the world, and we'll bring him to the president, and the president will thank us by giving us like, or by helping us out or something. But clearly if he ended up doing that, he probably would have just done the same thing and ended up wanting to wipe out the Skrulls. So yeah, crazy. Then I just final note about this white beam. It's really cool. I think it is the best like VFX thing in this thing, where in the first episode you got the beam coming down and the sound effects happen for like doom or whatever, and then Fury comes down, and then in the final episode it comes back when Fury goes back up, and I thought it was really cool. So yeah, that's a Secret Invasion. All right, next up, and I guess the final show of this digest, Yamada's First Time, Bigata HK. This is an anime. It has 12 episodes, and I watched it from the 24th to the 31st of July. And this was recommended by Kyle Entertainment. So, let me think. Overall, this is interesting. The first, 3 episodes were, really bad. 1 or 2 out of 5. I did not want to watch them. I absolutely would have dropped this show if it wasn't recommended by Kyle. And I wasn't doing it for digest. And yeah, it's just, I'll talk about why I guess I didn't like it. It was kind of boring and uninteresting. It wasn't funny. Very generic. The art isn't good. The animation isn't good. The directing isn't good. Nothing really stands out. And I just was not interested in it. But it got better. Particularly at the roughly halfway point where the this girl comes in and her brother, the rich girl basically, that made the show a lot more interesting, and the show got a bit more creative, and it wasn't as generic as it started off as. But yeah, so overall this is a 3 out of 5 is what I would say. But yeah, it was very close to being a 2 out of 5. But the last kind of 6 episodes or whatever saved it. But yeah, let's get into the notes then, I guess. I don't think I have too much. So firstly, I was surprised by... I knew this is an old show. It came out in 2010 when I looked it up. But I was expecting it to look older. But, excuse me, it's a very modern anime aesthetic. Like, if you told me this was made in 2023, I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, sure, it looks like it. So I guess that's like a praise for the show. I guess I did watch this in dubbed. And my one note about the dubbed voices was that Yamada's dubbed voice actor sounds very familiar, but I did look it up and I couldn't find anyone that I recognize, so I'm not sure why I found it familiar, but yep. There are a few voices in this that I do remember, but her voice sounded familiar, but it wasn't, so I don't know. So yeah, Yamada is basically a Volcel, where she wants to have sex. She could obviously get sex if she, I guess, didn't have such high restrictions of wanting to get with a virgin initially, and then I don't know. So basically, the premise of the show is that she wants to have sex with 100 people, but she ends up not having sex with anyone. Even by the end of the show, she doesn't have sex with anyone, which is kind of crazy. I was expecting that she would have sex with at least Custard by the end of the show, but I guess not. So it was a weird ending to the show. I don't know. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, she's a Volcel. Interesting. my other note, I don't know how this is going to last for 12 episodes. Those first 3 episodes were so incredibly boring. I couldn't imagine how they would possibly stretch this out to 12 episodes, but they did it. Anyway. Um, so the question I have to ponder when I'm done is, why is this show mid while Kaguya-sama is peak? So that is an important question. So I did not enjoy watching the beginning of this show, right? Let's just say overall, my general experience was that this was okay. It was a mid show, all right, as the kids would say. This was mid. Then there's Kaguya-sama, which is very similar. The premise is that it's Kaguya-sama Love is War, where you've got two people. You got the I don't want to confuse. You got a guy and a girl. The guy is in love with the girl but doesn't want to admit it. And you got the girl who is in love with the guy but doesn't want to admit it. So both of them want the other person to admit that they're in love with them, basically. And it's a war because it's like the first person to admit that they love the other person is the loser, and then you win if you get the other person to admit. So it's a very similar show in that it's similar in that they want love, but they never get there. They never quite get there, you know? The whole premise of the show means that there's never going to be the love admitted, because when the love is admitted, the show is over or whatever. It's very similar here, where it's like Yamada wants to have sex, so every episode she's going to be trying to get sex, but for some reason it's not going to work out and the episodes will continue or whatever. Now, whereas Yamada is mid, Kaguya-sama is one of my favorite shows ever, and it's like a 9 out of 10 or something. Like, I really like it. And I don't know why. And I think it's probably to do with the fact that I don't find, we'll talk about this, but I don't find Yamada's first time particularly funny. Even in the parts that I do like toward the end, it's like I've written down basically every joke that I actually found funny, and there weren't that many. We'll get to some of them. Whereas Kaguya-sama I find very funny. So I don't know what's going on there. But the other big difference is that this is in terms of production, there's nothing interesting in this show whatsoever. There's no cool animation, there's no cool directing, there's no cool music, there's nothing particularly interesting. Kaguya-sama is full of like Sakuga. It's one of the best looking shows I've ever seen. The character designs are amazing. Chika is one of the most beautiful anime characters I've ever seen in my life. What a cool design. And she's also really funny. Like, that show has everything, and this show has nothing in terms of production. I guess that's probably another thing. But yeah, let me see. What did I say? So I said maybe a big part is that the production is just completely mid. I think the same show directed with amazing direction, constant Sakuga, would work really well, but currently it just comes across as the most generic show ever. Who would be a fan of this is what I said, but I kind of get it. By the end of it, I kind of get why someone would be a fan of this. But my God, is the beginning of this very generic, and I don't know I don't know how this got past, like, I guess they don't do this in Japan, but like, I imagine if there was only one episode of this and you had to kind of sell that to the studios or something, I can't imagine this show ever getting greenlit, because that episode is goddamn terrible. Anyway, I guess another comparison to make is that obviously we've got the Kaguya-sama in one direction, the greatest show ever compared to this mess of a show. On the other hand, we also have the show Gamers, which is a slice of life kind of. You've got I don't remember too much about it, but it also has elements of like school and people wanting to get in like relationships and stuff, and there's dates and stuff like that. So it kind of feels similar to that. And I would rank Gamers very similarly to this. I very much did not. I would probably rank Gamers a bit lower than this, but that's another scenario where it's like the comedy doesn't quite work. The production isn't that interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Those are the three comparisons: Kaguya, Yamada, Gamers. Those are my three things. Anyway. Yeah, so the jokes I said are too predictable. For example, she gets excited when they're going to take pictures in romantic places, like parks or whatever. Then they go to a pond, and the joke is that it's a boring place. Very predictable, not interesting. I hate humor like this. Then there's another one. She's winning the beauty pageant, and she gets too confident, and then someone else comes in and almost beats her. And it's like, obviously that's going to happen. That's the joke. It's not funny. I don't know. Humor's too predictable. There's another, like, it reminds me of another show that is predictable in its humor is Konosuba. That is a very, like, I feel like I could predict every joke in that show, which is interesting because people really like the humor in that show, is what I've heard. And I find that pretty crazy to enjoy the humor in that. What I enjoy in that show is the characters, but I guess it's kind of similar here. I don't know if people enjoy this show for the humor or if they enjoy it for the characters. That's why I brought it up. Anyway, I think the only thing that the show has going for it is that the main character is a female and she's trying to have sex. she comes across as weirdly gross and not attractive at all. In a good way, kind of. It's interesting. Like, this is a very unique premise. Usually in shows like this, you would expect the main character to be a man trying to get sex, and that would be interesting. The novelty of the show is that it's a woman, and she's also gross and overshares, and her best friend sees her as like weird. It's an interesting premise. That's the one thing the show has going for it, is the premise, I guess. Particularly Yamada as a character. When he poked her boob like a light switch, it was kind of funny. There we go. All right, an example of a joke that I kind of found funny. Then we get the best character in this show. All right here, she's covered up by Yamada in the text here, but Misato is her name apparently. But she tells Yamada, she goes up to her and she's like, Yamada, you should enter the beauty pageant. And if you win, you should give me half the prize. And it's like such a random thing to say, and Yamada just accepts it. And it's so bold of her, and I love her so much, and she's so funny. Every scene she is in, she cracks me up. So every joke that I mentioned is probably related to her. She's so great. What a legend this character is, Misato. Anyway, Yamada is 1 centimeter taller than me. It's a weird thing to think about. I don't know why, but when I picture anime characters, I feel like they're all like really short or something. But it's just like, if I just, it'd be so weird to imagine Yamada standing in front of me and her being taller than me. It's like a weird, that's really weird. It happens with Ruby as well. When I see that Ruby is like my height, and to me Ruby is like a tiny like huntress, I'm like, man, why is she as tall as me? It's like kind of weird. I don't know. Anyway, I think this is the first show I've seen that has fan service for the sake of fan service. Yeah, this show has a lot of fan service. None of it is necessary whatsoever, and it's not particularly interesting fan service either. Like, it's not like it's very like, how do we even describe this? I don't like it. It doesn't appeal to me, I guess. There's some fan service I like. You know what? Let's skip this point. All right, that's too complicated. I can't discuss the nuances of fan service here. God, do I hate Kosada, or whatever his name is? He's too nice and boring. Yeah, we'll talk about that more. I think I have another note about that later. I don't like Kosada. I believe that was his name, Kosada. I don't know. I don't like him. I should have done like a tier list. How do I rank these people? Misato 1. Yamada 2, Nerd Girl 3, Rich Girl 4, Best Friend 5, and I have, I don't know who this is. I guess that's her friend. She's okay, and I have absolutely no idea who this is, so they'll go last. And then Kosada right at the end, because I hate him the most. I like the boyfriend of this girl. He was kind of cool. I like Kosada's sister. She was awesome. Anyway, we'll get to all that. All right. So same frustration as Kaguya, because I know that they can't make progress until the end of the show, and I was actually wrong about this. So I thought it was going to be that they never make any progress towards having sex, and maybe in the final episode they'll actually finally have sex. But no, they made progress. They first held hands or something, then she flashed him, and then they kissed, and it progressively got more and more. And I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. They're making progress here. That was cool. I also like the floating Yamada sensei thing. It's like an old wise version of Yamada that floats around and like breaks the fourth wall. I thought that was a cool kind of mini thing. It's kind of like Puck in Berserk, or Chestnut Puck, or whatever they call him. Yeah. Then I said, what does Bigata HK mean? I feel like they explained what this was in like one of the early episodes, and I just forgot to write it down. But I don't know. I guess later on you find out that it is like a song in the show, like an in-universe song that they sing. Like even Kosada is singing it in the bath or something. So maybe it's just a song and it doesn't mean anything. I know also their class name was like H2 or something, and the H is always focused on. And I'm like, oh, Indra, what's that? What the HK means? Is their school like Bigata HK? I don't know. Actually, that would probably make sense, wouldn't it? Maybe that is their school. No, but then why would they say Bigata HK when progress is made? Like when they kiss, it's like Bigata HK or whatever the song. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Someone explain this to me. When I say someone, I probably mean Kyle Entertainment. Because I feel like, I don't know how popular this show is. I don't know if anyone has seen this besides Kyle. Anyway. That one random girl in class giving... I just miss that though. What a great. This is the highlight of the show. This is greatest, funniest scene ever. Where it comes out of nowhere is why it's so funny. Like, we're just having a normal episode, and then we flash to her and her friend talking, and she talks about how she was reading in this magazine that men like women who don't wear underwear. So she decided to take. So she didn't stop at the underwear. She just took all of her clothing off. and spent the entire day in her room like naked basically, and it's so like it's incredibly random. It's so funny. I don't even know how to explain it, but it was so funny. Like, what a great scene. All right, that was so funny. She is the greatest. Anyway, she like sells this show. She's the heart of this show. And I laugh every time I see her. She's so funny. I don't know why. I guess the feeling I have watching this show is that nothing interesting is going to happen, and it's not going to make me laugh. So what's the point of watching it? That's kind of what I felt early on, like in the first like 6 episodes, where I'm like, it really does feel like they're never going to surprise me. There's never going to be anything funny. Like, why am I watching this? I feel like I can predict exactly what's going to happen. And I think that's why I liked it when this girl came in and the plot got a bit more ridiculous, and I kind of like that a lot more. Anyway, the Kosida, not sure if he's reading the situation correctly gag is like I kind of like that. It's like kind of good and relatable, I guess. Though it can be frustrating to watch, I guess. But it is relatable. You never really understand what people are thinking when you're around them, so it's cool. Oh, and then the other thing, they have like, there's a lot of transitions in this, in terms of like timeline. But one of them is when the new year starts and they're like sitting in new positions and stuff, and they got a new like classmates and all that. That was really cool. But it reminded me of when I was in primary school, and it was such a cool feeling when a new year started, because you got like everything was new. Like you had a new teacher, you had new classmates, you had a new like seating arrangement, you had entirely new things you were going to learn. You had you were like in a new classroom in the school, so you were in a completely different position in the school. Everything was just so new, like every year. Like that was one of the most exciting days. It's like the first day of a new year where you get to see all the new stuff happening. Yeah. Those were the good days, you know, and that's only in primary school, because when you get to high school, obviously you have a bunch of different subjects, and it's just not the same, you know, because I don't know, it's just not the same as a new year in primary school. Oh my god, my nose is so damn itchy in every single one of these media digests, and I never know why. Anyway, finally, now we get to the good episodes, right? I said, well, not good, but you know, fine. I said episode 6 was good. The new pretty / popular girl in the class, kind of her story arc has made this show much more interesting. I said, next note, the popular girl arc is great. And then Yamada goes to try and find Kosada at the camp that they're having with their family and neighbors and stuff. And she gets enlisted into a Warzone battle thing. And I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Like, that's the kind of goofy, random, awesome stuff that I like. Spending the entire school camp thinking about the girl you like and talking about gossip when the lights are out. Crazy how things are so universally relatable, I guess. Yeah, like Japan is obviously a completely different place to Australia and America and all that. But it is so interesting how different, like, it's such a universal experience to do those kind of things at a school camp, like overnight. It's interesting. And like the teacher barging in and telling everyone to be quiet. It's so universal. It's interesting. Jesus Christ, the CGI train is terrible. Yeah, that was the worst CGI thing I've ever seen in any anime ever. It was amazing. It's like a half-second shot of the outside of a train that they're on. And it was weird. Anyway, why is Yamada has a younger sister who is very, very popular. And she has a weird voice actor in the dub. It's almost like they just got someone random person off the street who doesn't know how to act at all. Like, she doesn't emote her lines. She feels like it's a person reading a script. It's like really weird. So I don't know what happened there. Like if they couldn't find an actor or something, I don't know. I got no idea. But it was weird. It would be fun if the show ended on a very serious tone change and the nerd girl here murders Yamada. Yeah, I was just hoping for something exciting, you know? Like they decide to amp it up and they get all this Sakuga and really cool directing angles and lighting and all that, and they just make a really serious episode and it ends on like a sad note of Yamada dying to this nerd girl here. I don't know. Once again, introduction of the rich girl is the best thing to happen to this show. Oh my god, I said the funny small girl, Misato here, before I knew her name, can smell hot men. How amazing. And she like goes on hunts and she like is running through the city smelling out the attractive men. What a great character this is. Jesus Christ, Kosada is an absolute asshole going to the rich girl's house due to peer pressure. What a trash human being who would do immoral things because he's scared of pushback. I hate him. Yeah, so basically at this point he's kind of like dating Yamada, and the rich girl here, she invites him to her house and he is like not really sure about it, and he steps outside and there's like a line of people pointing toward her limo, telling him to get in, and he just like caves and gets in, and it's kind of like so disrespectful to Yamada, and he obviously doesn't want to go, but he folds so easily, and it's like this is a man who would easily fold to immoral things and due to peer pressure. Like he has no spine. If someone told him to do something bad and he didn't want to do it, but they pressured him, he would do it. He just comes across as a terrible person, and I hate Kosada. Anyway, oh god, I also hated the sex scene on the, it's not really a sex scene, but it's like a very slow, like almost getting to a sex scene on the rich girl's bed. Like it's so awkward, it's so slow, they're taking the clothing off one at a time, and every time they make a sudden, like a move, they need to show Yamada's reaction, and like it's so slow and boring, I guess. What else? Oh, I guess I've only got 2 more notes here. I said, oh my god, yeah, there was a really good joke, and I don't think it's even intended it's a joke, but I found it so funny, which is the end of the final episode. I think it's the final episode. You go around and all the characters are basically praying for something, like what they want for next year. And you get to, how do I even describe who this is? It's like Kosada's neighbor or cousin or something, like the young boy. And you see his prayer and he's like, oh God, and Buddha, please listen. And he's like so serious and like desperate, and you hear the desperation in his voice, and it's like, I don't think it's meant to be like that, but they just dubbed it like that because probably that's how the animation looked. But it just makes him come across as so incredibly desperate and like really wants to get with Kosada's sister. It's just so funny. I don't know why that cracked me off. Anyway, I think it's even those first 2 words where it's like, oh God. And clearly it's meant to be like 2 separate things. It was like, oh God and Buddha, but it comes across as like, oh God, and it's like so serious. I don't know. Great joke. And then my final note here, very weird ending to this show. They didn't have sex. It just suddenly ended. And it felt like the entire show was just an advertisement for the manga, basically. Like it was really weird. So I don't know, not very satisfying ending. But yeah, that was Yamada's first time. Bigata HK. Pretty good. So now we have the 2023 rankings so far, excluding all the rewatches. So not very much to add here, but let's see. Look Back was the 5th best thing this year, so below Goodbye Yuri and Chainsaw Man, but above all the rest in 5. Left 4 Dead, yeah, then we got like in the 3s, we got Left 4 Dead 2 was probably the best of the 3s, then Secret Invasion, and then Yamada's first time, hovering above the good old Berserk Arc 1. So now YouTube videos. So first one, this is my favorite manga panel ever by Kyle Entertainment. So this was 8 minutes long. So let me see, what have I got here? So the idea behind this, I guess this video is basically talking about this particular manga panel in the manga Devilman, where in the video he talks about how there's a few things that happen in like in a particular volume of Devilman. I think it's all in one volume, where you have the death of that little girl, and then you have the death of like a little boy as well, and then you get this manga panel, which is kind of capping off the tonal shift that's going to happen in Devilman, and it kind of triggers the transition from like the second act of the story to the 3rd act, and he talks about why he likes this so much, and and I would say the content of this video is very straightforward, especially for me, because I've already talked to him. Like, we did a discussion about the Devilman manga, and we already talked about this panel in particular. So I guess it was very straightforward watch for me. And yeah, generally it was just a good video. And let me go through my notes here. So I said he uses a motif of like, we kill kids now, and he says that twice. And the first time it's like, we kill kids now, and I thought that was really good. And then later on he referenced it and is like, this is Devilman, and well, we kill kids now. I thought it was a bit of good writing. But anyway, so yeah, I guess I have my summary here. I said short, to the point, interesting premise. That's what I like. And it is generally what I like about, like, it's what was appealing about Kyle Entertainment's videos when I first saw him is these, he has very interesting premises for videos, and they're always very interestingly conveyed. For instance, the video that I know he doesn't like, but it just immediately came to mind, which is the That Thing Killed Judo video, where he said that he would make a video. I also haven't seen this in ages, so maybe I'm misremembering, but I think he said that he was going to make a video about every episode of Evangelion, and he didn't know what to make for this episode, so he thought he'd just make a parallel between the thing that killed Judo and one of the angels in Evangelion. I'm like, what a cool, unique video idea, and I enjoyed that. Then there's like, I wish it happened, you know, like, what a cool idea, in a like a really simple idea that you can convey to people, and you make a video about it. And now you've got, this is my favorite manga panel ever, where it's like a nice simple idea talking about this manga panel contextualized in Devilman. What a cool video. And it's kind of like those type of videos that inspired me to make videos initially. Yeah, like thesis-driven videos with ideas that I want to convey. Like my first one was particularly about, I guess it's not similar to this in a way, where it was about like one of my favorite panels in, or underappreciated panels in Attack on Titan, where Eren looks up at the sky, and just did an analysis of that. So I don't know, inspirational videos, you know, Kai Entertainment. Anyway. So I guess all of my notes here, I don't have anything about the content here, because it is, like I said, it's very straightforward. I've read Devilman recently. I understand everything you're saying. The recap, like, he did a good job of recapping it. I thought he captured all the good parts. It was engaging. And I understand, like, why he likes this. I also enjoy this panel. It does mark a tonal shift. It is ambiguous. It is kind of creepy and strange and kind of uncanny valley to see this character who's never smiled with this strange smile and say these ominous things and fade out eventually. Like, I understand what he's saying. So yeah. But anyway, in terms of production, firstly, the microphone was incredible. Like, because I've heard Kyle talk over Discord with his old mic and his new mic, and I can't really tell the difference that much. Like, it sounds a bit fuller, sounds a little bit nicer, but generally it's like, it's not really that big of a deal if he swapped mics on Discord or whatever. But in this video, like when I heard the first 5 seconds, I was like, wow, this sounds really good. And then I went and I compared it to the old videos that he has, and it's so much better. I couldn't believe it. Now it'd be really funny if he actually is still using his old mic and somehow he just like edited the audio differently. But whatever, I'll speak to Kyle now. Whatever you did, Kyle, for this video, for the audio, it was great. All right, so stick like that. With the one exception, actually, which I have in my next note here, which is that you would probably benefit from I'm sure you know this, but from like a pop filter, or maybe standing further away from the mic or something, because some of the P sounds, like the P or whatever sounds, that's gonna fuck up my audio, isn't it? Oh god. But yeah, it kind of pops, right? And you don't, it doesn't sound that good, but generally sounds really good overall. Anyway. Music choice was great in this video. It kind of fits the tone of Devilman, or at least this part of Devilman, really well. I like that. The video structure is very cool. So 80% of the video is kind of like a build-up and has very serious and ominous narration and tone and all that. Then he describes the panel, and then there's a fade out, and when he comes back, there's new music, and the narration has changed. So he's like talking a lot more casually, and like expressively and stuff. And I really like that switch up. It's really cool. Because it's like the majority of this video was like giving you the context, and then you get like the last like 20%, which is talking about his reaction and like kind of expressing like how he felt when he first watched it, you know, saw it, I guess. So yeah, I like that. There's one editing thing I wanted to point out, or like commend him on, that was really cool, which is when he's talking about or when you see the blackness of the panel dripping down, and he like drags the panel up to simulate the dripping coming down, or drags it down or something. I don't know, whatever it is. It looks like the dripping is coming down, but all he's doing is like moving a panel up or something. I thought that was really cool. Also, the ending of this video where basically it turns to black, like fades to black, and then he has manga panels flashing with like screaming crowd sound effects, and when he's describing like the mania of the end of Devilman. I thought that was really good. However, it was kind of strange. Like I thought it was really a good idea, executed well. However, it only flashes like 2 or 3 panels, and I think he needed to do it a bit longer, like have more panels, and yeah, like extend like the screaming or something for a bit. But yeah, I also have one more note, which is on the ending of the video. Firstly, it ends suddenly. Like, it feels like it ends very suddenly, this video. But I think that's because the final line that he says, the like pitch that he uses for the last word is like a bit weird for ending a video, you know? What did I write? I said the final line in the video is great. Yeah, first, I do like the final line. I had a lot of thoughts about this final line, all right? I had way too many thoughts about this. But I decided not to include them in this video because it's a bit irrelevant, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, the final line is, and then mania ensues, and you understand Akira's warning. Devilman is a hell you'll never forget, whether it makes its artifice known to you or not. And I think the not goes like, or not. And it's like, is that you ending or is there more to this? Anyway, I like this line, just ended quickly. And it also, what can I say? I don't know. There's too much to say about this final line. It works very well. It's like very flowery language. It ties in very well with the music, and it evokes a certain emotion, I guess, when I'm listening. And it kind of ties in with like how I like to write scripts and stuff. Like, there's two ways to at least how I write things. There's when I go through a draft or a script, I have something I want to convey accurately. So I have an initial like kind of outline of something, like a script or paragraph or something, where it's like conveying the exact idea I want to convey in like simple language. Then I kind of flower up the language and make it sound interesting, and then I pair it with music to kind of emotionally extract what I'm trying to get from the audience, I guess. And when all that lines up really well, I think it works very well. And I think the last line in this video captures that very well. So I don't know what I'm saying, but I have some thoughts on that, but I don't know what it is. But anyway, this is my favorite manga panel ever by Kyle Entertainment. Finally, we have The Count, Berserk's most misunderstood apostle by Ciclet, and it's 19 minutes long. So this is the latest video by Ciclet in his tirade. Is that even a word? Tyrannical attempt, or what? I don't know what it is. His unabashed war against people who don't like Griffith. So he is defending Griffith once more. This time, he's basically made a video where there's a common argument, which I don't know. We'll talk about what I know, but a common argument is apparently that people compare the Count who sacrificed himself for the sake of his daughter to Griffith, who ended up sacrificing his men for the sake of his dream. And apparently people use that to kind of paint Griffith in a bad light. And Ciclet is kind of defending Griffith in this situation by pointing out how you can't compare these two situations. So I guess I would want to say that I personally, I don't have much to say on this video, and I don't have many thoughts because I don't remember much outside the Golden Age, because I read it through very quickly. I have watched like the movies and the anime very recently, so I remember the Golden Age itself very well, but I don't remember any of the Black Swordsman arc at all. So I hardly remember this guy and like the things he did. So I don't really have too much to say about the arguments themselves. Like overall, it was a enjoyable video where nothing particularly stood out as offensive or like egregious or anything. Like at least in regard to the Count. Like I'll imagine if someone had a disagreement with this video, it would probably be a more fundamental disagreement with the previous videos about like Griffith being bad or not, like having empathy or not. That's probably where I imagine people would hate this video out of, rather than any particularly offensive thing he would say in his argument about the comparisons to the Count. Like I don't know, they all seem pretty straightforward arguments to me. So what did I say? Overall, it's the funniest of his videos. Oh, there is one great gag he does right at the end where he's like staring into the camera and he's like talking about how honesty is the thing. Oh, it's so, wait, so I said the stare at the end is one of the greatest gags in a YouTube video I've ever seen. He says, he's basically got his face and he knows that the audience is antagonistic towards him. And he says, the lesson, let me get ready here, right? The lesson from the recent arcs on my channel is honesty, I think. And if Berserk fans had more of it, then no one would disagree with me. Stop being so stubborn and admit that Griffith did nothing wrong. It's just so funny. Like when he puts up honesty and he's looking so sincere into the camera and is like calling out the audience, and he knows that people are not going to be happy seeing that. It's just so funny. Great gag. Editing was also great in this. I noticed the 1080p 60 frames per second. It felt very smooth, which isn't like a big deal. That's nothing to do with editing. It just has more to do with the exporting. But yeah, always do that. I think that was great. The ravenous music at the end got stuck in my head, like a da-da, 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 da-da. Like that got stuck in my head for a long time. There's a lot of panels he puts up. Like overall, it's just a very well-made video. What's interesting is that he uses a lot of what looks like stock footage, I imagine. Like people, like, I remember like sipping a cup of coffee or something. Like it's an interesting editing style, having an amalgamation of like clips from like stock footage and random movies and TV shows. Like there was a Better Call Saul thing in there. which I wonder if he has seen Better Call Saul. I don't know. It's one of the greatest TV shows I've ever seen. I wonder if he just saw it or took a clip randomly. Yeah, so it's interesting. And I have no idea where you even get stock footage like that. Like if someone drinking a cup of coffee or something. Like I assume there's stock footage, but maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe it actually is like Cichlids' friends like recording themselves drinking coffee. I don't know. Let me see. What other notes? Oh, I get mentioned as well because I am a absolute legend. In the Ravenous scene, he says, "How is this not gay, Ari?" And that's right. I'm a big deal. Right, I'm featured in one of Cichlids' videos. That's great. And then the video ends suddenly. Was interesting. Like he has a good conclusion to the main part of the video, but then he has like a little conclusion bit, and it feels like the end of the conclusion kind of like finishes very suddenly, which is funny because it's kind of just like what I said about Kyle's video where that ends suddenly. So yeah, a bunch of sudden ending videos this time. So yeah, not much to say. Overall, good video. Not too much on my end. So yeah, now I have a bunch of suggestions already. So I have Norco, I've already started that. Firewatch, The Garden of Sinners, which are a bunch of movies. Top Boy, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I'll watch that as soon as that comes out to like Disney Plus or whatever. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and Heavenly Delusion. So that's what I've currently got. And who knows, maybe I'll watch none of these. Maybe I'll watch all of them. Maybe I'll decide to watch something completely different. But if you want to suggest stuff, then go ahead. Movies, anime, TV shows, games, books, YouTube videos, etc., etc. Suggest what you want, but I will almost say, I don't know if I should, maybe I should remove this bit. I said I will almost certainly consume it if it's anime, 12 episodes or less, movies, if it isn't a comedy, TV shows, 6 episodes or less, or games, 6 hours to finish. And I just remembered, Kyle Entertainment recommended me a video, which is like some course or something. I watched like this is for Kyle only, right? I watched the first like 10 minutes, all right? It was very long and I had no interest in it, so I stopped. And it's like a 3-hour video, right? I'm not going to watch a 3-hour video that I wasn't too engaged in. But anyway, keep recommending me stuff, all right? And see you next month.